interesting story. Calls mounting for Norway to use its sovereign wealth fund to help move forward the EU's €140 billion loan to Ukraine. 5 Norwegian political parties have now urged Oslo to step in and do that. Norway is a NATO member, though not in the European Union. It's previously been accused of profiteering or getting profits from the war, selling oil and gas to allies, while, giving back, it is argued, not very much. Oliver Moody is the Berlin correspondent for The Times, and he's here on the line. How to you, Oliver?
Good evening.
Oliver, do please tell us more. This is potentially then hugely significant for Ukraine.
Yeah, this is very much Plan B. Plan A was to try and raise European Union loans secured against the €200 billion worth of frozen Russian central bank assets that are held in various European countries. But that has proven politically very difficult, primarily because of opposition from Belgium, which hosts the financial institution that administers the lion's share of this wealth. And so a couple of Norwegian economists who frankly feel pretty ashamed by the gigantic amount of money that the Norwegian state has made by selling fossil fuels to its European partners over the course of this war, have proposed that this loan could instead be secured against Norway's sovereign wealth fund, which is the largest in the world. It's worth about £1.7 trillion.
I mean, wow. I wasn't aware that Norway's sovereign wealth fund was quite that vast. And this is not just a matter of, a small number of influential, respected economists. You've got a lot of support in Norwegian politics, right up to government.
That's correct. So there's recently a general election in Norway, which the Labour Party and the incumbent Prime Minister, Jonas Gahr Støre, won. And now he is sort of seeking to get parliamentary support to remain Prime Minister. And crucially, most of the parties that have come out explicitly in favour of this arrangement are ones whose support he would require for that vote. So he is very much now on the line. And he has said that he's open to discussing the technicalities, but he's very much remaining in contact with the European Commission. There's going to be a meeting in Brussels tomorrow to try and make Plan A, this loan secured against the Russian assets, work instead.
So this would be instead of, not on top of, the EU's proposed reparation loan, that €140 billion loan, although Ukraine aren't going to be asked to pay it back if they get it, but it would be, if that does not work, if Belgium gets in the way of that, then Norway's talking about stepping in.
That's exactly it. And the real issue here is, well, first of all, Ukraine is desperately short of cash. It's running a gigantic deficit of something like 20% of its GDP. It's running out of creditors who are prepared to continue funding that deficit. And if the European Union and its partners are going to raise a loan, they're going to need very substantial collateral, because it is in the expectation that Russia would pay war reparations, which is very far from a given. So there's a very high likelihood that those securities would be called upon. And if they can't use the Russian assets, then a portion of this gigantic sovereign wealth fund would be a kind of replacement solution.
Yeah, I mean, and Norway then did very, very well, as it were, out of the energy crisis when the war in Ukraine disrupted the oil and energy trade. And I read in your piece, really interestingly, that Norway then are very sensitive to that.
They are tremendously sensitive. There was a highly critical article in one of the mainstream Danish broadsheets that made this point, and I think it really stung a lot of people in the Norwegian political establishment, especially when they're having a debate about exactly how closely they want to be aligned with the European Union generally. In the interest of fairness and balance, it should be said that Norway has actually provided a pretty generous wodge of bilateral aid to Ukraine proportional to its GDP. So it's not like it's done nothing for Ukraine in this conflict, but it has raked in more than €100 billion of fossil fuel sales from the Europeans, kind of filling that void that was left when the great shift away from Russian gas and oil imports happened after 2022.
Yes. I mean, a wealth fund of 1.7 trillion euros, biggest in the world. I mean, that is really quite a thing. I wasn't aware in my ignorance. It was the biggest in the world. And how does Norway use that enormous store of wealth?
Well, this is very interesting. So it is enormous. I mean, it's worth something over £300,000 for every Norwegian citizen. And in recent years, it has become increasingly open to the idea that this is not just a kind of neutral financial instrument, that it is a form of geopolitical tool. And so it has been increasingly activist in how it's using those investments, particularly with relation to companies that have been involved in Israel's conduct of the war in Gaza, but also at the moment, because it has a gigantic shareholding in Tesla, it's been one of the main activist shareholders that are seeking to block this enormous remuneration package for Elon Musk on the grounds that it's disproportionately big.
Such an interesting story. We really must keep in touch on this, Oliver. Thank you. Oliver Moody there, who's the Berlin correspondent for The Times.